They should be at high risk. Don't go to that hospital, because if you go there, something is going to happen spiritually. You understand? This is why we have hospitals, correct? What about schools? Don't get an education there, because if you do, you might end up becoming a Seventh-day Adventist missionary. That's the only reason we have schools. And if we don't fulfill that mission, guess what? God is going to do it elsewhere. He's going to find other people to do it. And we will lose our crown. Revelation 3, verse 11. Behold, I come quickly. Hold fast that which thou hast, let no man take your crown. Well, I'm not going to let anybody take my crown. I'll tell you what, I'm going to hang on to it for all it's worth. Don't you have a crown? By the way, it fits your head, you know. And did you know that your head's going to grow over the years? Did you know that? Did you know in heaven we're going to grow up to the full stature that we were supposed to be? Huh? Adam's about twice as tall as we are, right? And we're going to grow up to that stature of what we were supposed to be in our what is it called? Prime evil days or whatever it was. I don't know, I call it prime evil, I don't know, but anyway. Prime good days. Before sin took a toll on our bodies. We're going to grow up to that stature, and our crown's going to have to grow too. God prepared this thing for us to grow into His stature and ideal that He had for us, and with time it will. Little babies today are not going to grow up to be adults. Little children are not going to grow up to be adults. They're going to have to grow up in heaven. Isn't that a beautiful idea? Now, don't be surprised if little children are laid to rest. And don't be surprised if some of our elderly will be laid to rest. This is part of God's plan to prepare people and for the last fun, because they won't make it through the end. So if little children are laid to rest, just know that God is preserving them to wake up for you and hand to you back at the resurrection. Let's develop the mindset. It's time to go home. The bridegroom is coming. Let us go forth to meet him. Okay? So I could go on for several more hours. Let me just close with this one, and then we'll have some questions and answers, and then it'll be time to fly south for me. Page 77. Christian Service, the chapter entitled Arousement. Let the gospel message ring throughout our churches, summoning everyone to universal action. Does that sound what we heard today? Does that sound like that? It should ring throughout our churches and summon everyone to what kind of action? Universal. How many? Everybody. Universal action. Let church members have increased faith, gaining zeal from their unseen heavenly allies. Gain zeal from a knowledge of their exhaustless resources. How much money? How much resources? Exhaustless. Can we get the job done? Yes. Can we have television networks in every country? Yes. Can we buy up all the media we need to finish the work? Yes. Can we go forth without any food or money? Yes. You understand? God has exhaustless resources. From a knowledge of the greatness of the enterprise in which they're involved. Don't you want to be part of a big work? You're invited. A knowledge of the greatness of the enterprise and from the power of their leader. Those who place themselves under the control of God to be led and guided by Him will capture the steady tread of events as He ordains them to take place. You will understand what is happening if you are under the control of God, to be led and guided by Him. If everything you do is with God's permission and His direction, you will understand the events of what is happening. It says, inspired with the Spirit of Him who gave His life for the life of the world, they will no longer stand still in impotence, pointing to what they cannot do. We've done that so long. Can do it. No longer. Instead, they will put on the armor of heaven and go forth to the warfare, willing to do and to dare for God, knowing that His omnipotence will provide for their need. I love that, doing and daring for God. You know what doing means? Get the job done. I don't care what excuses, just get it done. What does daring mean? It means it can't be done, but I'm going to do it anyway. Right? It's impossible, but I'm going to do it anyhow. I don't have the money. It doesn't matter. There's too much opposition. It doesn't matter. There's a phrase, by the way, once you give yourself totally to God and to be led and guided, there'll be some people that don't understand you. Maybe your family, maybe some of your friends, maybe some of your leaders. It happens every time. In fact, in Romanian, there's a phrase that says, the skin of a man with no enemies is not worth 2 cents. Interesting phrase, huh? If you're going to get up and change the world, guess what? You're going to have some very powerful enemies. Anybody who does anything worth doing gets opposition. Now, You don't want to cause opposition because you have a rough character, you're discourteous to people, or you hurt other people. That's the wrong type of opposition to have. But if you get opposition because you're doing the right thing, it's okay, right? It's normal. Did Jesus have opposition? In fact, if he came back again today, would he have some? The bigger your enemies, the greater your influence. It's the other way around. The greater your influence, the bigger your enemies. Okay? So don't be surprised if you make a step for God and all of a sudden people go, what? No, shh. And then you say, no, I'm going to give everything to God. I'm going to go all the way with God. Oh, you're radical. No. And it's all of a sudden, your friends that were your friends aren't your friends anymore. This is normal. Why? It's called the shaking process. A straight message brings people into opposition to the message, and then a shaking takes place. When God says reform all the way, everything on the altar, everything, and you say no, you get more and more hostile to the idea of even the thought of giving up everything. So those who are giving up everything are like discipline to you. You look at other people who gave up everything and they come back shining, the Lord provided for us, and you go, I don't want to even hear it, right? So it happens very subtly, and it keeps going worse and worse. So I want you to know that it's very important that the decisions you made today, that you follow through on them tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And one thing the devil does, he starts getting you to fight each other. Does this church ever have different conflicts? Every little church does. The devil's an expert. Keep them so occupied in internal affairs, they can't do war on the outside. Right? This happens all the time. So therefore, don't you think it would be a good tact to say, you know what? From now on, no matter what people do to me, I'm just going to forgive them. Just forget it. You know where it comes from. It's not that person. It's not Susie who did it to me. It's not Joe who stepped on my toe. They didn't mean it. It was the devil who was trying to get me preoccupied. Just forget it. I forgive you. If everybody forgave each other and let's get on with the business, we could start fighting the enemy. But little issues come up and we spend so much energy and so much time on little issues. The community laughs at the little Seventh-day Adventist church because they're always dealing with internal issues. I don't know, of course, the issues. I'm just saying that I know that every church has them. It's time we get over them. It's time we all get together and make some strategic plans to go out and do community service and become known as the most loving church in Manchester. It's time that it reflects in the work over there. Some of you that have responsibilities, start exercising your influence and changing things so that that hospital becomes the most loving hospital in Eastern Kentucky. When everybody wants to come to the hospital, man, go to Manchester. They'll take care of you. They're just like your mommy. You understand? And if you don't have money, they'll still take care of you because they do it because they love God. You say, but how can we ever pay our bills? You know what? Jesus never tried to do business to take care of his bills, yet all his needs were paid for and his disciples were paid for. And like Guam, a year later, after opening 3 clinics for the community, they're in the black. Now don't tell me, I don't understand how it worked. They didn't tell me the details. All they said is the first year we're in the black. And they did more free clinics than it ever had before, and they're going out there and the community just is loving them to death. Probably it's this way. There's a book Mission Pilot. Some of you have the book Mission Pilot? I'm sorry that I didn't have any free copies to bring. I ran out of them. I usually bring some. If you want a free copy, you can download it off our webpage, gospelministry.org. You can just download the book, and Mission Miracles is a sequel. But do you know that I don't even own the rights for Mission Pilot and Mission Miracles? I own the foreign language rights. Spanish. It's been translated into 10 languages. Spanish, Chinese, Korean, Portuguese, French, German, all of that. I own those rights, and we give them away everywhere. But I do not own the rights for English. So legally, every time you go, I put that on my webpage and you download it, it's an illegal copy. Pacific Press owns the rights. And Pacific Press never gives me a problem because they say your sales on your book after all these years are higher than some newly published books. We're selling them like crazy. And I said, you know why? Because I give away so many copies. The more you read the electronic copy, the more you want to buy a copy off of the ABC. And so I give them away all over the world, and I just told Pacific Press, leave me alone.